delicious
Yes.
food, or any moment, they are real.
Yes. True.
And when this is so firmly understood, it's the firm confidence of the subtle path leading to let go whatever is there, not at will. Each appears so sudden and then gone by conditions. So understanding the way it is, no regret of seeing gone, hearing gone, thinking gone, like gone, anything gone. They are the way they is. They are
Yes.
not different from now and then or any time at all. So it depends of what is there instantly to be known and then gone.
Yeah. Thank you,
It is
Ajahn.
not yet that level of understanding, but the understanding of it has to be that way. It let go the idea of trying or wanting something to be known. They haven't arisen yet. How could they be known? So what is there? By conditions, just very shortly and then gone. It conditioned less expectation for everything. Anything can happen by conditions and then gone. Understanding the way it is, letting go sorrow or unpleasant feeling for what happenings at all. So we can talk about the truth of seeing, hearing, thinking, liking, or whatever is there in life. Even we don't use the term Dhamma, it is Dhamma because Dhamma is real and they're all real. But when we say Dhamma, sometimes people do not understand what does it mean. So they try to find out what Dhamma is. But if we say we are talking about seeing now, hearing now, attachment now, viriya now, or metta now, say it's real. So what is real is Dhamma. But if we use just the word Dhamma, who knows what Dhamma?
Yeah. Thank you, Ajahn.
Buddha taught for 45 years about the truth in many aspects to be understood, to gradually develop understanding, and the understanding, letting go, ignorance, attachment, very gradually. So when it's a time that is different from the past with ignorance, it can be known. How come? By conditions, without listening, considering, letting go. How can there be moment of understanding with no attachment at all? That's why, to be truthful, there is unseen attachment now, unknown attachment now. As long as it's something, or I see, I think, I like, all are realities. When it appears without understanding, it's gone. And it arises again, and then no understanding, and then it's gone again. But it's different from moment of beginning, even just very little. It's a reality. Seeing sees, but its nature is different from that which cannot see, because it now knows what is there seen, not inward, but it
Yeah.
experiences that object. It depends on whether there is understanding of the difference between the seeing and that which is seen, to understand that that is the world, that very
Yeah.
moment is the world of sight, no one there at all. Only the arising and falling away, experiencing what is seen and then gone.
Mm. And achan is also from there. I see that that's why after the samadhi, right understanding is the second from the Eightfold Path, and this precious understanding of the truth.
At moment of understanding, a little less ignorance and attachment is there. See?
Yeah.
By conditions, not by anyone.
Yes. Thank you, Ajahn.
So it can be any moment. Seeing is there all the time. It depends on conditions, whether there is attending even just a moment to the reality which sees or to the seeing. So what is so very rare in a day? See,
Yeah. Understanding the truth.
at moment of not forgetting the truth of what is there, to condition moment of attending to the nature of it. Like now, it can be that moment, but one can see that if we don't talk about it or think about it, it's not conditioned for attending to the nature of that which we talk about all the time. It sees, it experiences the object.
Yeah.
And this moment develop to understand the moment when it's there. Naturally, gradually, by conditions. It's known when it's there at that very moment. But as long as it's not known yet, it's still there, and we are talking about it little by little to condition moment of attending instantly to the nature which we can say see or experience. The object does not appear because it's the moment of attending to the reality which is there, experiencing an object.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's very deep and
Deeper and deeper to let go
yes.
the idea of I can do or I know.
Yeah. This attending is like hidden. You have to be very real to realize it.
Begin to study the characteristic which is there as no one at all because it just experience an object. It's there as a reality arising, experiencing. The object does not appear because there is attention or attending to the characteristic which experiences, arises and experiences. Different from rupa, that which cannot see, cannot hear, no experiencing at all.
Yeah. Thank you, Ajahn.
My pleasure. So happy to know that you understand or anyone understand the subtlety of Dhammas
Yes,
and understanding how deep it is, condition, patience, and effort, and truthful to the truth.
Ajahn, I have another question. We went to this place where Buddha gave this fire sermon about, is this about all the, what we're talking about, all the five senses? The fire sermon, can Ajahn help me in my understanding? Because it was, I cannot remember the place, but it was where he first gave this
It,
sutta on the,
it is just like a fire when it's gone, arising and gone.
okay.
It harm, it hurt, attachment,
Okay.
because attachment cannot attach to the way it is, just arise and gone. Only one reality at a time. When we talk about it's not permanent, we think about the whole world and people and things. But what about just one reality? No one. It is as it is, arises and falls away clearly, because the truth is that it arises and falls away one by one, appearing. So, like one sees that which is not permanent, breaking on and on all the time. And all the time doesn't mean just as long as we think. All the time of that which appears, short or long, how fast it is, in split seconds.
Mm.
The world is broken, breaking all the time. Is it fearful? What is
Yes.
that? Not permanent at all. We think that we live in the permanent world, but in truth, just only one moment of one reality, arising and falling away.
Yes.
No one can stop the way it is. If it's not directly experienced, no one can imagine what is taken for something is just fall away, never to return.
Yes.
And, and the nature of falling away is not as we think or we can imagine, because just one reality does not appear yet, as one reality only at a time.
Mm.
So only hardness appear thinking about the truth. Nothing can appear together, because right then, citta just experience hardness and it's gone, both instantly.
Mhm.
No one at all. It begins to let go the strong attachment to what is there as something or I or someone. But the accumulation of the I of the self is so deep that is not enough, see. Many stages of understanding the truth clearer and clearer and clearer before it realized the Four Noble Truth, all of them, but one by one.
Yes.
Is that
Thank you.
fire burnt everything up.
Yeah. Thank you, Ajahn.
And this kind of understanding will condition the letting go of the clinging of that which appears as something all the time. It's not just the word about that it's not permanent and that is that, but now it's so permanent until right understanding develop stage by stage. letting go what is there conditioned. Even just seeing just one moment needs more conditions for its arising and then gone instantly. Is that not the teaching of the enlightened one from his enlightenment?
Yes.
To help the other to begin to understand the truth of what is there so permanent.
Yes.
That is not permanent at all, even just a moment or a reality. And that is the understanding of the First Noble Truth. But it has to be a moment of realizing just the arising and falling away of one reality to be dukkha ariya satya. From hearing, considering, little by little, until it's direct understanding, little by little, before it can appear clearer and clearer, stage by stage.
Thank you, Ajahn.
It's now. Learning about seeing, whatever is there, before it arises, it's not there. And when it's there, just very shortly and then gone. Nobody can change the way it is because actually they are only dhammas. And the way dhamma is, it cannot be changed. The noble truth of whatever arises falls away.
Yes.
So gradually developed, see, one word, one moment, one reality. But there are so many, many realities, different ones. Once it's there, it's gone, never to return.
Yes.
Are you about to speak, Alan?
Oh, no, I've got accidentally switched it on. I wasn't, but I do remember a comment that Ajahn made about the one way, the only way, and then she said the word magga. So maybe just to understand a bit about that word magga, which means path, is it? Just magga, what does that mean?
It is the path, but there can be the right path or the wrong path. So the Buddha taught about the right path and the wrong path. So when there is trying to pay attention to an object, trying to understand seeing in Bodh Gaya or here or anywhere else, it is the wrong understanding and the wrong path. And the right path, the Sama path, is the right understanding of reality now and the other right factors, with the understanding no one to do anything at all. And in truth, like now, we think of Bodh we think of a place, we think of a big long story, but it's actually just seeing now, just hearing, thinking about what's seen, thinking about what's heard. In truth, no one here, no place there, nothing at all, just different dharmas arising and falling away. And it was helpful to be reminded by Sita and Ajahn about the fire. Whatever arises hurts. It's the object of clinging again and again, no matter whether we're in Bodh Gaya or here now. There's clinging to what is seen, clinging to what is heard.
What did the Buddha mean when he said that if you were to die on such a pilgrimage as to go to the holy places, you would be, I don't know, born in the heavenly realm? I think there was some kind of sutta about that.
With right understanding, not with wrong understanding, not with clinging and the following of the wrong path, following different kind of rituals, thinking one has to bow down and light incense and do this and that, but understanding of the truth as taught by the Buddha in those places. So it's always with right understanding. And earlier, Betty and Sita were mentioning briefly about the middle way. The middle way is the way of right understanding. It's the right path.
And why is it called middle?
Because no wrong view by way of taking realities for permanent, and no wrong view by way of assuming that at the end of this life, there's nothing more. All those wrong views are concerned with the wrong idea of self. So it's actually not the middle between wrong views, but it's indicating that it's wrong both to take what arises now as lasting, and it's wrong to take that at the end of this life, nothing else continues. So it is just the right path, right way.
And does it also mean, can it also mean the middle between self-indulgence and self-mortification?
Any idea of I doing anything special for understanding is for, as you say, if one has the idea one should just enjoy oneself as much as possible, or one should starve and lead a particular way of life, it's all wrong. So it's not really the middle between wrong views, but it's showing that any of these ideas of something, a special practice, is wrong.
And maybe I'm wrong, but what I have heard about middle way is that when Panya understanding to the truth of how it is straight meaning, because Panya see Dhamma as it is. So I'm not sure whether I'm explaining whether it's correct or not, but I have heard middle way because it's truthful to the truth. That's why they call it middle way. It's straight to the truth. Whatever Buddha have enlightened, and we understand that.
Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it. It is straight to the truth. None of these other wrong ideas about following any practice or going somewhere special. Even the idea that one should die in India would be a wrong idea, wrong understanding, because what about this very moment?
I think too what you... yes, excuse me, Sarah, I was just saying...
I was just going to finish and say that it has to be the understanding now that dhammas are anatta at this very moment.
What you were saying there a moment ago, Ellen, about the middle way, I believe is correct. Because at the time of the Buddha, and probably now to some measure. There was you talked about the avoidance of self-mortification, which was quite common, and is what the Buddha himself, sorry about the noise here, it's just rather noisy in the background, what he did at that particular time, and realized that that level of self-mortification was not appropriate and was not in accordance with Dhamma. And when he came back had discovered the truth and taught to the Panchawakya, the 5 disciples who had stayed with him, they thought when he had given up on that he was a bit of a backslider, but he discovered the middle way, which was that, as you said, that what has been said subsequently is true, of course, too, but that was what the traditional meaning of middle way was between extremism, self-torture and mortification, and self-indulgence on the other extreme.
Thank you. And I suppose it manifests itself because when we say, or when you say that there can be mindfulness or awareness of aversion or attachment, then that is the middle way, isn't it? Because we're not concerned about what reality is now, but it can be understood whether it is wholesome or unwholesome. So it is the middle way, not trying or not having aversion towards a situation or place.
Yeah, sure. That's another, that's what is meant, of course.
The word magga can also mean the Magga-citta, can it not? That is the culmination of the path, I guess. Is that right? That so what about this Magga-citta? What's its function? What does it do?
Magga-citta is the citta that eradicates. Of course, you've got many different levels. You've got at the level of Sotapatti Magga, which eradicates those, which we're familiar with wrong view, which is the one that takes us to lower worlds. When that's eradicated, there's no more rebirth in animal realms or hell realms, preta realms, animal realms. No doubt, Vicikiccha has been eradicated, and also what's known as Silabbata Paramasa. There's no belief in certain types of, sometimes it's translated as rites and rituals, but certain people believe that you have to, for example, we could say that going to a certain place to develop understanding, well, that would be an example of Silabbata Paramasa, grasping hold of a certain type of practice of your life, which will take us to, which is not the path, which is contrary to Dhamma. So those 3 are eradicated at the moment of Magga-citta. That's at the level of, say, Sotapatti. Then you go higher up, we won't go there, but the different levels of understanding, or as understanding is further developed, different kilesa are eradicated.
Thank you.
Can we say that when it's not right way to understand the truth, it's wrong? Any wrong understanding, or even it's not wrong, just take pleasure in such and such way, thinking that's the way to attain the high happiness or pleasant feeling, something like different idea all the time. So the middle way is the way right to understand the truth. Straight way.
Yes, if one has the idea that the middle way is something between the strong attachment to sense objects and self-mortification, and that it means a little less attachment or a little less mortification, somewhere in the middle, that is wrong, because that's also wrong way. So it's not the middle between different wrong paths. If one thinks one should try to have less attachment, that would be the wrong way. Or if one thinks one should have a little less self-mortification or treating oneself harshly, that would be the wrong way, because it's still all about I. It's still the idea of something I do. It's not the understanding of the truth at all. Like an arrow has to be directly to the truth. Any other way is wrong way.
Yes, and from what I have seen before, like even like Thai Buddhist people, they take middle way as listening to everybody and not just stick with one, and that's what their idea of middle way. But they don't understand anything. So what is middle? It's have to be panya. It's not that, oh, I'm a middle and I listen to every opinion and all that. But that is actually wrong.
Agree. Or it's an idea of compromise. Well, a little of this and a little of that, a little bit of self-pleasure and a little bit of self-mortification and a little of this teacher and a little of that, but no understanding at all. So it's all wrong way. None of it is middle way at all. Unless there is the understanding of the reality that appears now as Dharma. It's not the middle way. It's not the right way. It's only the understanding of what is true and now, not any idea about this situation or that situation or this place or that place or this teacher or that teacher. Just the understanding of the truth, appreciating the Dharma as refuge, as Sita started by talking about here and now at this moment.
And I think that also I can see that it's very easy to go wrong with the suttas, so that if you read the sutta without having heard from somebody who understands it, it's very easy to interpret them wrongly, which is why I'm guessing that the Buddha said 4 conditions for enlightenment, and the first one is the meeting somebody who understands them and then listening, because without that, even though you've got the suttas are very easy to misinterpret.
And the meeting doesn't mean one has to physically meet the person. It is the association with the true teachings, no matter by reading or listening or meeting. But then how many people associated or met the Buddha, but how many people became enlightened? It's not just the association with the true teaching, with the wisdom of the Buddha, but the very careful considering and reflecting, which again Sita was talking about at the beginning. Many people come and join the Zooms or go to listen to achan at the foundation or in India, or many people open suttas. But what about the careful reflection, the wise reflection about the truths that the Buddha taught?
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, again, we think of a situation, we think we have to physically meet this person or something. But no, it's the association with the Buddha's teachings, with the wisdom of the Buddha, and the very careful consideration of that truth of the teaching.
And that aspect that you mentioned there, Ellen, of that first condition of association. And then, of course, there's the third one of what Sarah has been speaking about, is yoniso manasikara, attending wisely to that, and then following in accordance with that. And that's not, just you do this and this and this and this and it'll happen. There has to be that ongoing, very careful consideration, because one can still misunderstand and go askew. So, especially being this far out from the Dhamma, I think the the likelihood of going askew is much greater than it was potentially at the time of the Buddha. When and of course during that time, there's great, I think, potentially greater opportunity, not only of course to meet and listen to the Buddha, but to hear and speak with many other very wise people. Whereas today we live in a very, very different world where there is a lot of people who may say that they are, following in accordance with the Dhamma, but that always needs to be considered carefully, because I suppose anybody, as Tamajan once said to me, anybody can say anything. So we always need to continually question and consider carefully. If that doesn't happen, ignorance is a very, very strong Dhamma, and it can pull us in the wrong direction very easily in subtle ways. And of course, the more subtly you go off, eventually it can become very strong.
And that's why it's triple gem, isn't it? Because it's the gem is very rare. So it's very rare to find that understanding.
I think totally, Adam. I'm sorry, Alan. The gem, in the sense too, in the sutta. When you say that, I think of the Ratana Sutta, which is a sutta on gems, and they are much more sublime than so-called physical gems or gems that we might consider to be precious. These are the most precious. And I think in the sutta there was that very famous verse, Waro, Waranyu, Warado, Waraharo. Waro is referring to the Buddha as being the most precious gem. Waro, Waranyu, the knower of the most precious gems. Waro, Waranyu, Warado, the giver of the most precious. And the bringer, Waro Haro, Haraharo, which is the bringer. So you got the bringer, the giver, the knower, and the person himself. So that is what we often. That is the most precious thing. It's so easy to forget about that because of our accumulated ignorance, primarily. And I don't think those are really truly appreciated until, Tanajan often uses that phrase, he who, once you know that the Dhamma is, I'm just trying to remember the Pali, but, so Tanajan refers to this as, when there is he who sees the Buddha, he sees me. So, he who sees the Dhamma, he who sees the Dhamma, he sees me. So Dhammam Pasati, so Mam Pasati. So he who sees the Dhamma, he sees me. And sometimes people say, who was the Buddha? Buddha revealed the Dhamma, the ultimate Dhamma to us. And so he who understands that Dhamma, that's what the Buddha represents, or what he shares, what he develops to understand over billions and billions of lifetimes.
Yeah, and we know him through his quality when we understand. We see him through his quality when there's understanding. And Buddha said, even if someone physically see me but does not see them, that person doesn't see me. That person doesn't know Buddha, doesn't know Dhamma. Yeah, so it's about understanding Dhamma and see who is Buddha is through his quality.
Totally well said, Hachi. And of course, there's that fellow Wakkali who just like to follow around, look at the Buddha, and well, from my perspective, it would be quite amazing. But he said, you just see this, asubha, this unbeautiful body or foul body, and if you just look at that, most beautiful representation, you could say, of a human being that the Buddha was, you're missing out on the point. If there's not any understanding being developed, then there won't be the appreciation of Dhamma.
I remember once when I was a photographer, I had to photograph 3 diamonds, and they were worth something like $6 million. And they weren't anything special because they were uncut. If you saw them on a beach or something, you could just easily pass them by. And it kind of reminds me of the Buddhist Dharma, because most people just pass it by. They don't recognize the value of those gems. Just pass it by, walk over. It's so what is valuable is overlooked all the time.
Oh, totally. I think, that happened in the Sutta recently, Arya Pariyesana Sutta, where just after the Enlightenment, immediately after his Enlightenment, the Buddha ran across he actually, normally apparently, Buddhas go by psychic power from their place of enlightenment to teach the first, to give the first teachings. But this particular Buddha, the last Buddha, Gautama, he deliberately walked from Bodh Gaya through to Benares so he could meet a fellow by the name of Upaka. And Upaka, when the Buddha ran into Upaka on the path, Upaka said to him, "Wow, who are you? Who is your teacher? You look really amazing." And he said, "There is none like me in the world. No beings there are like me." And he said, have you conquered? Have you found the end? Because people in those times were wanting to understand the end of samsara. And that was called, so he asked him if he was anantajina, which means he has conquered the endless cycle of births and deaths, and the never-ending cycle of births and deaths, and then the horrible consequences of that can entail, mostly. And the Buddha said he had conquered it. And Upaka, like you're just reminding me of that, said, "Well, it may be so. It may be so." He was seemingly somewhat skeptical. So here he was, he'd met the Buddha, like you said, with that remarkable gem. He was the most excellent being that you can ever run across. And Upaka didn't know, but apparently there's a good ending to that story in a way, because the Buddha deliberately walked to meet that fellow, and he realized that he did have the conditions for enlightenment, but they weren't ready at that particular time. And it was only till later time that he thought to himself, "Oh, there was that fellow once. He said to me he had attained it." And the Buddha told people at Savatthi, if a fellow comes looking for an antajina, comes looking for the one who has conquered, because that wasn't a common name. The Buddha had many epithets, many different names that he was known by. And he said, "Tell him to come and see me." So out of his compassion, he walked, because that fellow, although he wasn't ready at that time, there weren't the right conditions. But latterly, when he had lived a certain life, subsequently led a pretty colourful life. But anyway, he eventually came back, and when he came across the Buddha, and he became anagami. So we can see sometimes there are just different conditions to what weren't the conditions then, but the Buddha sometimes, yeah. Anyway, it's a bit of a story, but I always remember it's in the Arya Pariyesana Sutta. Majjhima Nikaya, I think it's number whatever, it's 26, I think it is, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
And of course, there were so many people in the Buddha's time who would have listened, but, you know, and the Buddha was there, but they didn't value what he was saying because there weren't the conditions. They didn't have the levels of, you know, of appreciation that was because of ignorance, essentially. People would have just, been a bit skeptical or whatever. So, but there were people like, you know, the Sariputtas who just heard a few words, and other people who just heard a few words, who understood because they had developed that level of understanding. But I think most people didn't straight away appreciate it, but they're always very keen to listen. And often at the end of a sutta, like in the Kalama Sutta, where they say they take refuge in the Buddha, they're really, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, that is, it seems to me, an indication that they understood at a very profound level what the Dhamma was all about. Not all of them would have felt that way, but many of them did. You know, that often you hear at the end of a sutta, you know, you have lit up a light, you've lit a light in the darkness, or you have turned over which had fallen over, and now it's clearly able to be seen. But because the way he was able to share and express the Dhamma, and he knew what would have been the most useful thing to say to, you know, a group of people at a particular time. And of course he was most, as Tanajan often reminds you, he was teaching and sharing for 45 years, not, as we can appreciate more and more, not be able to sit in a particular way or go to a certain place, because wherever he was, he shared the Dhamma, and he encouraged, always say, the bhikkhus, you know, to share the Dhamma according to how it is. But yeah, so we have to be, especially these days, getting back to perhaps what we talked about earlier on, really carefully consider the Dhamma, the reality that appears now, and not to be forgetful of the Dhammas that appear. It's not just for another place or another time. And Dhamma can only be understood at this present point in time. It's not something that, you know, you have to wait for, which doesn't, when you think about it carefully, doesn't really make a lot of sense, because Dhamma can only be understood at this present point in time, whatever it is. So easy to forget, you know. It's not just about the special place or the special posture. We're very fortunate, you know, to have reminders about that, because that is the great, you know, that's what ultimately the gems of Dhamma are all about. And, whatever situation we may find ourselves in from day to day, and that's that aspect of viveka, you know, the seclusion of the chitta viveka, you know, it's about where the mind or where the heart is, if you like. And it's easy to forget that, even though it might be very noisy, we might be in a very noisy or unpleasant, what we might consider generally an unpleasant situation, there can still be development of understanding. There still can be the kusala heart with panya, potentially.
Thank you.
Divya, I noticed you were here, your photo was on earlier. Last week you were talking about the loss of your grandfather, and we were talking about understanding about the truth now. Do you have any comments, and how are you getting on this week? Can you hear me, Divya?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Namaste.
Any sadness now?
Less, very less.
And when it arises, it's for a moment and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Like every reality arises and
Yeah.
gone. Yes, we think I've been sad all day, but actually it's always just for a moment, just like the joy is just for a moment, or the pleasant feeling when thinking about the good qualities of your grandfather for a moment, the seeing for a moment, whatever arises is for a moment.
Yeah. But today I saw my father. He was also crying. And I was so, but it's still sometimes it happens.
It happens, it's natural. And when one sees the other person crying, how does one feel? Does one feel sad with dosa, or is there metta, kindness for the other, or compassion? Because at moments of kindness and compassion, no crying, no sadness at those moments. So the moment, at the moments of showing kindness to your father, helping him, having compassion, there can be joy at those moments, and at moments of understanding that it is sadness, just a dhamma that arises and is gone. It doesn't belong to me or my father or anyone in truth. At the moments of understanding, no sadness. So the Dhamma, understanding of the Dhamma, is the best medicine for all kinds of sadness, for all occasions, for all situations. And we think about my father, my friend, my husband now, my grandfather that was. But in truth, is there any friend or father or husband now? Because what is seen now, is it someone or just the visible object that's seen? What is heard now, is it my voice or is it just sound now? What is touched now, is it my father, my grandfather, or is it just hardness?
Just hardness.
Just hardness. So we find it hard to accept, oh, my grandfather has passed away, but is it hard to accept that the hardness that was touched a moment ago has gone? The sound that was heard a moment has gone. By understanding realities, this is the way to gradually learn to accept what life is and to appreciate that whatever arises, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, good or bad, it's just a passing dharma, not belonging to anyone. I remember when I went to the funeral of a close friend in Thailand a very long time ago, who was in an accident, car accident, and the bones were laid out. And Ajahn said to me, just touch it, just touch them. It's just hardness. And she reminded me again and again that the sadness that I was feeling was just for my own self, for the loss of my pleasant feeling. We think the sadness is for the other, for my father, my grandfather, my friend, but actually it's just for oneself, for one's own loss of pleasant feeling. So when there's kindness or help to the other family members, no sadness at those moments at all.
And Divya, when Sarah is saying, can you accept hardness that has arisen and fallen away? What she meant is by understanding. It's not just like accept with ignorance or like okay, like Sarah have said that uh, your grandfather have passed away, and to accept her meaning is actually to understand the Dhamma as it is, not just like, oh, accept with sorrow. So that is not an accepting. So I just want to say at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
As Ajahn was saying to Sita at the beginning, the Dharma is very deep, very subtle. The attachment comes in instantly now to what is seen, what is heard, what is thought about. And that's why the sadness, the grief comes in so quickly too, following the loss of what one's used to be so attached to. But it's always at this very moment. And as we stressed last time, without the reality now, there would be no situation about the dear one who'd passed away, the accident, the sad story, the story about the different people in the different suttas or the jatakas, long, long stories. Without the reality now, none of those stories. So gradually we learn to understand more about the truth of the reality now in order to appreciate that what we're used to taking for being true or real are mostly just different stories, different ideas. So the truths that the Buddha taught help us to appreciate that understanding can develop to understand what is here and now, closer and closer to life at this moment. Do you have any questions, Divya?
No, I'm listening.
Glad that you can join us at this time, and also the other friends from Nepal.
Okay.
I think it was Yotika last time who was talking about an accident, a terrible accident that was in the news in the Netherlands. And Ajahn reminded her that actually it's just seeing now, hearing now, life now, different feelings. And it's the same at that time or any time. But we are so used to thinking of this situation and that situation and this tragedy and this disaster. But life is the citta now, the moment of thinking now, the moment of seeing now, the moment of hearing now. It all comes back to life at this very moment, one citta at a time. Alberto, do you have anything you'd like to bring up today? Or Tal? Or anyone else? Do you have a question for Ajahn about any reality, Alberto? Earlier, Ajahn said, what reality would anyone like to ask about or talk about?
Sarah.
Betty, go ahead.
Yes, in regard to the your experience with going to the funeral and touching the ashes, I had the same experience with my husband when he passed away. After the cremation, I had to carry his ashes on my back as we went to the ship in which to put the ashes into the bay. into the Gulf of Thailand. And that was to me a wonderful lesson in rupa and in permanence. And not only that, I had to carry the ashes wrapped up on my lap, but I also had to pick out of the bones of the remains that are left after the cremation, which are put in the form of looks I call a gingerbread man.
Yes.
I was the one that had to pick out the bone, the various pieces to put into various urns that people had brought to, like for my children and myself, and had brought to keep those as remembrance. So when I was doing this, when this was occurring, I felt, thank goodness for the Dhamma, or else I probably wouldn't have been able to do that.
It's my experience was a bit similar at this time. Zita and Robert will be interested to know this was Alan Driver's funeral, and yes, I was given the urn of ashes to carry on the boat. And I remember at a certain point, Ajahn and others said, okay, throw it over the side. And all the flower petals were being thrown over, and they told me, throw over the urn. But I was just clutching it for dear life, couldn't let it go. It was so funny. And then finally I did, but it's amazing, that strong clinging just to hardness, not able to let go at that moment. Yes. But it's and it was just the same experience about the bones being laid out like a gingerbread man. And Ajahn picked up my finger and she said, touch it. It's just hardness. Because she could see I was standing there looking tearful. And she said, it's just hardness. What is there to feel sad about? It's just hardness.
I was not sad at all. I was, it was just, I was so grateful for this wonderful lesson in Rupa. You know,
And it's just daily life now, like whether touching the computer or the notebook or the bones or the relics, it's just hardness, just the same, nothing of significance at all. And
it's all the same.
Each moment all gone, yes. Robert, are you trying to speak or wishing to speak?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's maybe not so hard when there's just bones to accept, but when people are alive or when we're alive, it's a little bit harder to see that there's still only hardness. There's no one there, in fact. You could hear that.
Yes, well, that's the point. When it is just the bones, they're just different rupas. But it's more complicated when we look at the image, but actually it's still just visible objects seen. It is just hardness, touch, but there's thinking about the consciousness of the other and the mental factors, and the idea of a whole comes in instantly.
Right, but like you say, there can also be, depending on how immersed one is in Dharma, there can also be instantly after that the reflection that actually it's just visible object. There's just hardness. There's just vijnana. There's just different elements. So the Dharma helps to support wise thinking about it, even if that's just intellectual understanding. It's certainly a big difference if that compared to no understanding at all.
Helps one to appreciate how we live just in the world of dreams and stories about different people, different lives, the past grandfather, the present friends, and so on. But actually, there are just different dharmas arising and falling away.
Right.
Ajahn, would you like to add any more comments to any of these topics that have been discussed?
The more we heard about any happening, it's so very complicated all the time. That's why how deep and subtle the truth is. Because at moment of touching anything, what about the understanding of the truth of what is there? It's complicated with the idea of such and such until the more clear understanding gradually develop to understand that the firm confidence of Dhamma has to be developed to the degree that it can arise any time of any object unexpectedly. That is so true in one's life, how much understanding of the truth. That's why just listening and thinking for only sometimes is not enough. But all are conditioned. It cannot be expected that we have more understanding of such and such, but all depends on this moment of hearing and considering. Who knows how much it develops? And this is the path, understanding of how to understand the truth as it is the first noble truth. Whatever arises falls away. It has to be the understanding and clearer understanding of the truth of what is there, one at a time. Now we're talking about eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, through mind of talking about it. But nobody can stop the way it is. That's why firm confidence of the truth of no one gradually develop that it is conditioned to think about really, or it is a moment of condition to be sad. It's there already to be known. So it depends on when it will be gradually, directly understanding the ultimate truth of that very moment as no one and no thing, no boat, no car, no water, no bone at all, or adamas in split seconds. That's why just live with understanding no matter what situation is there. And the proof is that how much understanding of what we heard about the truth, it develops so very gradual. We just sit in the boat, it flows along, floating. But what about thinking at that moment? Can it be a moment of understanding with awareness of just a reality? Even not at that moment. What about now? Any moment in life. That's why we can talk about the truth and understand that no matter it's so complex or complicated, it can be studied to understand the differences between just one reality in order to understand that if there's not enough understanding with awareness, different levels of the characteristic which appears, there can never be clear understanding of that because it does not appear yet as it is. For example, seeing or hearing, it's there all the time, but no thought about it, or no mindful of the truth of it, no attending to the characteristic which is not that which is experienced. So we listen again, talk about it again, and understanding firmer a little more, just a little more, about what is meant by the path or Makkah. See, it's right now, at moment of considering, hearing, discussing on the truth of what is there, little by little, because even it's so true, what is there is now arisen, by conditions, no thought about it, but it's there and gone. So how can be the moment of attending to just the characteristic of what is there right now? See, it can be that which is seen, or that which sees, that which is heard, or that which is remembered, or that which is like any moment. They're all there from moment to moment. That's why no matter we're talking about this or that, but the understanding of the truth can develop to the degree that it conditions unexpected moment of being aware or begin to understand the difference between direct awareness with right understanding, just very, very little or very, very weak at the beginning, because it appears together with other reality until it's the more considered to know that it's different from the other little by little. And the main understanding to understand what is that clearer is understanding the difference between the reality which experiences and the reality which does not experience or cannot experience anything at all. So at moment of sadness, that which experience the object of sadness does not appear, and the object of sadness does not appear, but only the reality which is sad is there, different from the others. So in order to understand the truth of that reality is that understanding the difference by way of experiencing and no experience at all, not able to experience anything. It is the beginning to let go and to understand deeper and deeper about the reality which appears. No need to say that it's sad about this or that, but sadness is there as a reality which is sad, different from seeing, different from considering. See, each one is so different. So learn to understand the differences between each one. For example, attention, attending, and interest. See, or amanasikara, or chanda, and so on. So close, and they are there, arising together and falling away. For example, attachment and interest. Are they there together? But what appear? None appear yet. So what appears is only that which can be attending, developing, understanding of the nature of it little by little, to be familiar or acquainted to the characteristic which is there in the day almost all the time, but unknown as they are different. One experiences the object and the other cannot experience the object. So there are many, many things to learn to know the truth of what is there by different words of the teaching about them by way of ayatana, by way of paticca and so on. Just right understanding develop on and on to have firm confidence of the truth of it's just a reality, not inward, because a reality is there, but it's not thought about. It is remembered as it's just there, and one experiences the object and the other does not experience the object. But in truth, its character is it does not or it cannot experience the object because it's hard. So hardness is there. No name, whether it's rupa or whether it's nama, but hardness is there as not anything as usual taken for something, but it's just hard. No one, nothing at all. Only one reality, hardness. Learn to understand just one reality a little more, so it can be object of direct understanding with awareness, different degrees, little by little. So natural, like now. We heard a lot about bones, relics, and water, and board, and so on. But what is there? When it's not being the object of careful considering or attending, it cannot be known as we used to talk about it. Like, is there a reality? Is a nama? It experiences the object. The Dharma works on its way, as its way. It develops when it's right understanding. So very little about the truth and forgot. Because even right now, as soon as it's gone, not thinking about that which is gone, but thinking about that which appears, and the next one followed instantly, unknowingly all the time. That's why Dharma is Dharma, the only way or only path leading to understand the anothernness is only moment of understanding the truth, little by little. That's why discussion on Dhamma to understand the truth more and more is a blessing, the most precious moment in life. It's time for other thing now.
Yes, thank you, Achan. Sawadika.
Achan, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Sadi Taj, very much.